All right. I am joined here by Sean Bormet, head coach of the University of Michigan Wolverines. What's going on, Sean? How are you?
Doing great. Just it's a Friday. We have our alumni tailgate tomorrow, so we got a ton of alums and families and supporters coming in, a couple hundred people. So super excited about that. Preseason's off to a great start. Great to be on the show.
Awesome, man. Well, very excited to talk with you again. It's funny, I was bummed. I wanted to make it down to that tailgate, and then I remembered like, oh yeah, I coach my son's football team. I kind of can't be at two places at once, but maybe next year you'll tailgate my son's tailgate or my son's football game. Nonetheless,
Go.
let's get let's get rolling here. So let's talk about right. I mean, you guys summer's ending, the preseason's going, and it's about to kick off the regular season, right? But that doesn't mean that there was any slowdown in your work and what you're doing. So talk a little bit about, summer training, traveling, both with the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club and Michigan.
Yeah, we had a really busy summer, which is a great thing. I mean, we had five guys preparing, competing at the Olympics in Paris. So, once we got through all the trials and we had those guys solidified to compete, obviously Micic was training over in Serbia and at some points he was over in Bulgaria. So we weren't really managing his day-to-day training. He was with the coaches from Serbia and his father. But the other four guys were here pretty much full time, and we were coordinating training partners for them, um, getting over to the ranking tournament in Budapest. So it was a busy summer, but it was great. We had all of our guys on the team that were here training hard. They were involved in those workouts, helping push those guys and kind of just elevating the room and elevating the environment. Like I said, a lot of training partners coming through, so they got to get their hands on a lot of guys coming in from the outside, which is always great. That variety in the summer, I think keeps things exciting and keeps things more challenging. We had 2 straight weeks of great summer camps. Our summer camps are doing really well again, since we sort of had that little COVID uh, slowdown, but the
Mhm.
camps are back in full swing. We had 2 straight weeks, 14 straight days of summer camp at one point. Our college guys were teaching and inspiring all these young kids, and Sarah Hildebrandt was in to run our women's camp, which was outstanding. And I know all the girls that participate in her camp were so excited to see her go get that gold medal
Oh
in Paris.
yeah.
So and we sort of like it all worked out sort of perfect because we were actually getting brand new mats in our wrestling room this summer too. And we basically trained hard all the way up through when everyone left to go to Paris. And then we shut the room down for about 2 weeks. And we had old mats taken out, new mats in, and then they got to cure a little bit. So it was sort of a nice 2 week break to sort of shut our guys down and just get them in the weight room, doing some cross training and sort of some of the guys went home for a couple weeks, so it was a nice break. But back in full swing now.
Awesome, man. Well, I wanted to ask too. I mean, just in general, the focus of the off season, right? Because obviously you're doing everything with the wrestling club and the everything you have to put into them, but that doesn't leave the Michigan team behind, right? So, what are some of the things that you're focusing on as far as their day to day training and development, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, there's a bulk of like just team areas that we're constantly trying to improve and get better at, whether it's positioning or hand fight and control ties or finishing. You know, there's some individual stuff in there for each guy, whether it's, top, bottom, or more on the neutral, more on the offensive side, more on the counter offensive side. So, there's sort of some team areas we cover pretty consistently through all these practices. Even there's a lot of crossover between the folk style and the freestyle in those areas also. And then specifically, there's a lot of areas on the bottom. Some of the younger guys continue to just confirm their ability to defend crab ride, defend guys that are riding legs on top, our ability to break down ride, return on top. Those are just some key areas that, we try to spend a little more time in. And then just, some guys it's physical attributes, we're working on different physical attributes or, making decisions to adjust weight classes. So
Mhm.
a lot of that stuff's done, throughout those spring, summer months.
Excellent, excellent. So, one thing before we get into Team 103 here, I wanted to ask. I mean, obviously, there's a new addition to the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club with Real Woods.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about kind of how he's fitting into the program there and what he brings as far as an energy standpoint.
Real is doing awesome, and he just sort of got settled here about about a week and a half ago, and man, he's dynamite. I mean, he's really healthy right now. I'm very excited to be here in this environment and just sort of, I think all the training partners we have, the energy, from the coaching staff. He brings a ton of intensity. He loves to train and compete, so he is definitely tenacious in the practice room. But he's sort of just been like a sponge this first week he's been here, just soaking up everything he can. Totally buys in all the training we're doing. He's just one of those guys that he makes an impact. I see it
Hmm.
right away. I mean, like I said, he's only been here about a week and a half, but he's already like, whether it's recruits in for visits or, alums and supporters coming through the building, even guys on our team, after practice, I've already seen him like connecting with those guys, working on, they always work on different things after a workout. So he's just one of those guys that, man, he's high character and he makes an impact beyond just his own ability to wrestle and his own reasons that he's here. I mean, already having an impact on the total program, which is it's the way you want it with these senior level guys.
Well, it's funny. I had a chance to interview him once, actually in Ann Arbor at Big Ten's a couple years ago, and yeah, he's one of those guys that just, the presence is electric, right? Without it being obnoxious, right? It's not over the top, but you still feel it. So at least that was my experience with it. So I'm glad to hear he's fitting in well and helping out in that regard. But
Yeah, and the
let's
guys
get
guys love him. So we're
yeah.
super proud of, especially the guys like Dylan, Ragusin, some of his former teammates, Will Lewan. I mean, so the guys are fired up. He's here. Gomez is fired up. He's here. All those middleweights he's training with. I mean, it's we're really fired up that he's here with us.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So well, let's get to Team 103 real quick, right? So seeing as we're in preseason mode, let's kind of talk through the front runners at some of these weight classes and where there's going to be some battles and maybe guys that you know we should have our radar out for, right? Especially knowing we can see some guys in the lineup without it burning their red shirt year right away. So but let's just go through it, right? Talk a little bit about 125. I think a lot of the weights have some front runners based on previous years and what you can expect, but 125 is one of those weights where I feel like there's going to be some real competition, and whoever starts in November might not be the guy starting in March. So let's talk through it.
Yeah, 125. I'm already seeing it in every workout we're doing. The competition, there's literally like five guys competing for that starting spot, and I see them all working hard and they're competing hard in the practices and the weight room, the running, everything we're doing. We have weight certification coming up on Monday. That process will start. So guys are starting to sort of shrink down and
Mm-hmm.
get ready to certify. But 125, yeah, I mean we got a true freshman who's super competitive, Chris Kaiser. He just got in. He's from Oklahoma. He's junior national champ, state champ. I mean, tough kid. I mean, he's got a great work ethic, great mentality. Nolan Wertinen from Michigan. He saw some time in the lineup off and on last year a little bit for us. We got both the Tanafu twins. I think they're both going to certify at 125. So and we also have another true freshman from Illinois who has been just, not that I'm surprised, but man, he is dialed in and he wants to be great and he's got the work ethic and he's sort of like a sponge as Teddy Flores from Illinois. And he's another guy that intends to certify at 125. So between all those guys, we got some depth and definitely some great competition. Those guys are really elevating themselves because they all want that spot.
Well, and it's great to have a combination of experience and youth, right? All kind of trying to compete for that, and um, I'm sure the guys who've been in the room are kind of trying to put the hammer down and be like, welcome to the jungle, right? But these other guys are nipping at their heels. So that's going to be exciting, man. I'm pumped to see it happen, and I'm a big fan of the phrase "the cream rises to the top," right? And that's usually where that happens, where you got a big battle like that. So we'll see how that turns out. Another front runner that we can look at 133, Dylan Ragusin obviously had a strong year last year before officially coming out of the red shirt and getting on the podium. So talk a little bit about what what he's kind of built on that success from last year and the confidence that I'm sure getting on the podium brings.
Yeah, it was really important to him. He really, I think he, really impacted him that year before not getting on the podium. That really burned deep. So I know he was really putting, emphasis like he should, and sort of a lot of positive pressure on himself last year to really perform and get on that podium. And he did it, and had a great season. Did a lot for our team coming out of red shirt and putting that season together. He's had a great off season, put a lot of work in. And I know for Dylan, he's definitely got the work ethic. He's got the ability. I know that his sights are set on being as good as he can, competing as well as he can all season, and bringing home a national championship. And I know that's what he's locked in on. I know that's what he's working toward. And we're putting all the resources around him that we can to help him do it.
Excellent. I know he talked last year at NCAA's. I got a chance to interview him after he officially got on the podium. I think it was actually after his final match, but he talked a lot about a Michigan man, right, and what that means, and kind of finally feeling like he had earned that level, right, or that status. Um, I didn't really prepare to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it. I guess from your perspective, right? I mean, you are a Michigan man in the sense that you went to Michigan, you're coaching at Michigan. I know that that's a big thing, but talk a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, I mean it involves a lot of different things, and I think it's when you come in here as a freshman, and it's another big jump, and it's how you handle the kind of workload. It's how you handle the adversity you face, because every season's not perfectly smooth. How you handle the ups and downs. It's your ability to stay committed, be loyal to the process, the program, put the team in front of yourself in many scenarios and many situations, which was, that was a big thing Dylan did last year. And just being that great um, team-minded guy, as well as, obviously we got to carry an academic load here. So we take a lot of pride in, not only the way our guys perform on the mat and the kind of success we have in the sport of wrestling, but also the kind of success we have, um, in the classroom and after wrestling. It's really
Mhm.
important to our program and to our alumni base. And it's one of the more challenging balances that we keep, and that our guys take a lot of pride in. Dylan's he takes his academics serious, a great student, but he's a great competitor, and I know that meant a lot to him, and the way he did it last year and the way he sort of stepped up for the team meant a lot to him. And I think he really wanted to do that, and then come through and deliver, and score a lot of NCAA team points for us and help lead that team to another trophy. So those are the kind of things that where it's your individual results are everything, but you're also a lot of your purpose, and a lot of things you're doing are above just yourself, and a lot about the team. So that's a big thing that we emphasize here, and it's always been a championship formula for us.
Excellent, excellent. So, appreciate that audible allowing me to
Yeah.
throw that in there. Um, One of my favorite guys from last season, another front runner for you guys, I would say at 141, Sergio Lemley. I got a chance to watch him at the MSU Open, and I think he made it to the quarters or semis of that tournament before dropping to a Northwestern guy, and later that year, torch that Northwestern guy, right? So just using that as a quick example of a lot of the growth he had throughout the season and adjustments he made in his wrestling. So with that progression, that great progression all year, has there been any big leaps over the summer or anything you've seen from him that is really encouraging coming into the preseason here?
Sergio's greatest strength is just his consistency. I mean, he is a straight up worker, and he puts a lot of time in. He's fanatical about the sport and about being great. So I would say with him, it's just really about consistency. He put a lot of consistent time in the summer, just continue to develop areas that he felt like he needed to be a little better last year. Just setups and finishes when he gets to legs, and he made a lot of progress. I felt like he steadily improved throughout the entire season last year, and I saw that same progress this summer. He was in here training a lot, putting a lot of extra time in with with Austin Gomez as he was preparing. We had Bajrang Punia here for a while, and he was putting
Mhm.
a lot of time in and getting extra workouts in when he could with Bajrang, just, with a lot of hand fighting and a lot of underhook work. He constantly pushing himself to be better. So, with Sergio, he's going to have a great situation again this year in terms of training partners at the weights above and below him within the team with our club between Josh Torella and Real Woods and Austin Gomez. So I think with Sergio, we're just going to continue to see him improve again from week to week, and he's a fierce competitor. So I know what the goal is.
Mhm. I have a feeling I know what it is too, and I'm very excited for that. So, moving on to the next weight class, again, another front runner I would assume would be Dylan Gilcher, redshirted last season. I mean, he got some competition in and looked good in those competitions. And then most recently, I saw there was a video athletes that Miles Amin had put out there, and he's sparring with Dylan for I think 7-8 minutes for a while. I
Yeah.
looked good. So talk a little bit about what your expectations are for him coming into the lineup, and where you think he's going to be able to surprise some people.
Yeah, I think that's another weight that's sort of obviously with Austin Gomez graduating, that's another weight that sort of opened up as, sort of opened, I would say
Mm-hmm.
Gil based on everything I'm seeing and some of the matches he had last year, is definitely a front runner. And I've seen him raise his level of consistency already throughout this summer and certainly this fall in terms of just how he's building his cardio base, how he's building his body to certify the kind of things he's doing, not just at our regular practices, the kind of extra things he's doing from his nutrition to the extra training he's doing to just sort of get his body really in shape and fit for that 149-pound weight class. I mean, his dedication and commitment is at another level. It's always
Mm-hmm.
been good, but I've seen a jump because I think he realizes to do this right, he's really got to focus on some very specific things. But he's another guy. Just man, he's a great competitor. Trains hard. There's some areas we got to continue to improve with him and his attack rate and some of those things. But we know what kind of competitor we're putting on the mat every time he steps on the mat. And he's another guy he's benefiting so much from all these training partners we have around those middle weights.
100%. And yeah, I mean, you've already named a bunch of them. It's a murderer's row of guys they get to work out with. So, um, 157, obvious transfer from Michigan State, Chase Saldate, comes into the room. I had the opportunity and privilege to interview him earlier this summer. He talked a lot about, you know, reinvigorating his fun for the sport, being in the Bonner Wrestling Center there. So talk a little bit about how he's assimilating into the team and maybe some of the leadership you see from him as a veteran in the NCAA landscape.
Yeah, Chase has really been impressive. I mean, just overall, I mean, he is really just a sharp guy. I mean, way he interacts, way he communicates, sort of the attitude, his approach to everything he's doing. Really, it's been tremendous to have him in our room. I really enjoyed getting to know him and watching him. Just kind of fit in with our team and our program. Super well respected, super likable guy. Great, just huge addition, really. And he can wrestle. I mean, watching him train, watching him wrestle, watching him compete in our room. I mean, he is really good. He's got some special things he can do, and I think it's been great to see just sort of how he's absorbed everything when he got here, just the environment, some of the comments he's made about just how impressed he is when, it's the middle of summer, he walks in and there's 25, 30 guys in here working hard, smiling, excited to be in there. And just for him to be a part of all that, he is really loving it. When we start talking about, 149, 157, 165, then you start also talking about, Alec Pantaleo and Will Lewan and just a bunch of great training partners. And within the team, there's a lot of depth with some young guys with, Cam Catcherbone, Justin Gates around those weights. We got a veteran guy like Zach Madden who's been like right in there at 157 and 165 these last couple seasons, and he's in there
Mm-hmm.
working hard and making a lot of progress himself. And then Brock Mantonona, we'll have him certified at 57 also, and he's obviously a red shirt that can use up to 5 matches. So just from a training partner standpoint and depth in those middle weights, it's a great situation, and he's really been thriving in this room.
Well, and I'm very excited for you mentioned Brock Mantonona, and then there's Bo Mantonona as well. Again, speaking, with Chase, he was just singing the praises of Bo and what that kid's able to do, and I mean, in his red shirt matches last season, you can see the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like, let me rephrase that. Maybe you can't see the ceiling because it's so high up, right? Like it's going to be impressive to see what he can do in a full season in the lineup. Again, as a front runner, we'll call it. But what are some of the things that you're seeing from him that are put it this way, like when I see him wrestle and when I see him do things, he seems to do things that other people can't do, right? So, am I mistaken in that, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, both Bo and Brock, they really have some special talents and some unique things that they can do just based on, sort of growing up through also jujitsu and judo and then having that wrestling base. I mean, those guys really have been exposed to a lot of different things. And, even the other, man, it was like earlier this week, I was playing around, I was showing Brock something, something, a counter basically when a guy's short sitting on you that I've sort of developed that works really well. And I showed it to him and like, right away he was like, yeah, he's like, that's sort of similar to this other thing I do that's from jujitsu. And he showed me, and I've never seen this in my life. And he did it, and I couldn't believe like how effective it was, but there's just been exposed to a lot of different technique that, we haven't necessarily thought about because the objectives are a little different, but
Hmm.
they got some areas that they're going to continue to improve on. I mean, there's just some baseline areas that they're going to continue to improve on. But man, when you talk about guys that are just sort of fun and exciting to watch and guys that they don't want to just win matches, they want to score a lot of points and they want to pin and they want to dominate and that's sort of a nice changing of the guard with some of these younger guys coming into our team because a lot of them sort of are like that. And even Chase puts a lot of points on the board and has been a great pinner. I think he had 12 or 15 pins last season,
Hmm.
which is great. But I'm seeing that same thing with Brock and Bo. And Bo's had a really good summer, put a lot of work in. I think going through the U20 nationals and then made a big jump just in
Yeah,
terms of just sort of having his mind calibrated from a conditioning and a mental conditioning standpoint for these bigger matches. He made a huge jump between that and then those U20 trials. We saw a big jump, and there was just some little things we tweaked in his training, in his conditioning. And but these guys want to be great and they are willing to pay the price and do the work. So I think it's going to be fun to continue to see how much they actually progress between now and March. But they're also at the same time as they're progressing, they're also helping push that entire room up. Everybody who trains together in those weights, I mean, everybody's getting better every day, and that's something we talk about all the time.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, wanted to go to 174 here. Another front runner and a guy who's been in the lineup, Joseph Walker. He's been consistent, stingy on offense, had some big wins throughout his career. So, talk a little bit about that weight, Joseph Walker, and if there's anybody else, competing or battling for that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we're pretty fortunate because we have some depth at every weight. So there's definitely some guys competing also at 174. I'd say Joe's probably a front runner just based on some of the things I've been seeing. And Joe's been a guy. He has won some big matches for us, and he's a guy that when we've had to call him and put him in these last couple of seasons, he's always been a guy that we're confident when we put him on the mat, he's gonna really represent the program well and compete hard and give us everything he has. And I would say one thing this year I've already seen is I think he's just mentally in a really good place. I think he's sort of had a lot of mental growth, just in terms of the sport and sort of where he's at with everything. So I'm really excited to see, just how that plays into his season and how that plays into his matches and how he competes this year. And again, he's a guy, he's put a lot of work in. I mean, he's constantly had his hands on Miles and Daringer and Fine Silver. I mean, he's always challenging himself, and he had a great summer with those guys as those guys were all preparing to compete internationally. So I'm really excited about Joe and what the season might look like for him.
No, I'm excited, man. I know he was a guy. mean, years ago when we were interviewing Miles on Blood Round, he was a name that he threw out there as like, watch out for this guy. He's good. He's competing hard
Yeah.
with everybody. He's always at practices. He's putting in the work to be there. So I'm excited for him to continue to have that chance potentially to get out there and get on the podium himself. Another guy who actually got his first full season in the lineup last year, at least that I can recall, Jacob Bullock.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome job last year. So talk a little bit about because it's funny, right? So from my perspective, I'm sitting here as a guy who would have loved to have the opportunity to compete Division 1 and ultimately didn't. So I look at these guys as like the most talented guys out there, and they should be so confident in everything. But at the same time, then you get there and you realize, like, I mean, this sport in general, like it's humbling, right?
Yeah.
So a guy even as talented and as awesome as Jacob Bullock, I'm sure you still have confidence building pieces and wins and matches and even just takedowns sometimes from experiences getting a full season in the lineup. So where do you think he's built the most on top of that sort of confidence and having that experience from last season?
I would say, really for Jaden, the first 2 seasons he had, he really missed out on all his development because he um he had injuries that sort of like he had required surgeries, and then he missed the majority of the season and all the development that goes along with that, from a skill development standpoint to just raising your level of competition, your level of intensity, and calibrating your mind for this very tough Division 1 level of wrestling. If you're a guy that's competing to be on the podium, and so he sort of missed that. So last year he was one of the guys I was most excited about, and we had an unbelievable team and just some awesome guys. But Jaden was one of those breakthrough guys last season that he had a couple big wins early in Las Vegas, and you could just see the confidence and the momentum growing. And then he had a really strong season overall. So for him to build off that, the biggest things I've seen this summer is it's sort of just reinforced and allowed him to really double down on all the hard work it takes, and to
Mm-hmm.
see all the benefits from that hard work and feel it and be so close to being on that podium
Mm-hmm.
last year that I've seen, he's just a hungry guy. He's kept his head down. He's just been putting the work in, and he's already having a great preseason. And I've seen that level of, last year when I saw that level of intensity jump in his training, as he started to get better confidence and just more dialed in and more locked in. I've seen that just continue, and it's even at a higher level right now this fall than it's ever been. So I'm really excited about Jaden, and he's sort of emerging as also sort of a leader in the room and
Mm-hmm.
just his actions and everything he's doing. Because even though this is only his second season really of eligibility, um, he's a fourth year guy that's sort of a veteran in terms of being in the practice room and being on a roster, but yeah, and he's really coming around, man. Great, great, great young man, and excited for him.
Well, I remember again years ago at the MSU Open, seeing him out there and being like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
this guy's going to be something when he gets in there."
yeah,
And he certainly proved it last year. So, and then at 197, you've got Jacob Cardenas coming in. We're excited for the transfer from Cornell. Again, I had an opportunity to interview him earlier this year, and clearly gets his last season here at Michigan. So, talk about his impact on the room so far.
yeah. Jacob is just like he's another guy. He sort of reminds me of he's like a bigger version of Lemley. He's just a straight up worker. I mean, he just puts his head down and works, and great competitor in the practice room. Right now, he's on a little bit of a different plan than the college group because he's getting ready to compete at the U23 World Championships at the
Mm-hmm.
end of October. So he's sort of been on a different training plan. July and August, and certainly this month of September and into October, he's on a slightly different training plan, just very, sort of more freestyle focused. He's sort of peaking and progressing towards that tournament where our other guys are just sort of building up through the preseason. So he's sort of been on a different plan. But man, we've just seen great things from him. Guys love him, fits in really well. He's in the Masters of Management, just a great master's program here at our business school. I know he's really excelling in that program, and I hear nothing but great things about him up on campus too. So he's just an all-around leader and just a great human.
No, I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do, and I mean, the Big Ten is the Big Ten. It's going to be just as tough as it always is, and especially at 197, there's some hammers in there this year. So,
Yeah.
but let's talk about heavyweight, right? Another one where there's a lot of depth and competition for you guys. So just put it out there. What do you expect to see this season from the competitions in the room?
Yeah, so right now we basically have, like 4 or 5 guys, sort of younger guys and also some guys with more veteran experience at heavyweight. And these guys are also similar to 125. I mean, I see them all competing. I see them all more dialed in. I think it's sort of hard to gauge right now who the front runner is.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing, it's pretty competitive. We have Ira Jenkins, Keegan Nugent, Lance Strost, Austin Jordan, Jabril Kershadov. Those 5 guys are all, sort of battling in there. They've all had different opportunities over the last season or two to get a lot of matches at some of these open tournaments. Um, so we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a very competitive, and I think competition will actually at some of these weights and sort of our philosophy is, we see everything in the room and we're monitoring everything every day. I mean, every workout's a wrestle off, whether it's a lift or a run or a practice, how guys are carrying themselves, how much effort and intensity they're putting into everything they're doing, how they're actually performing and competing. But, ultimately a lot of that starts to boil down to performance. So I think as we start getting into some of these early tournaments and early competitions, those weights will sort of be identified.
Well, I'm certainly excited to see how that goes as well. I know I've referenced this many times already on this interview, but I do intend to be back at the MSU Open as I am pretty much every year, and look forward to seeing some of those weights figure themselves out in real time. So, before I let you go here, I did want to talk through. I mean, obviously it's football season, being at Michigan and home of the most recent NCAA football Division I champions.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that you get to, utilize that as part of the recruiting, right? So you had a big recruiting trip coming to the Texas game, USC. You mentioned this weekend is the Minnesota game for the Brown Jug. For those
Yep.
that aren't aware, the Brown Jug is the kind of trophy between Michigan and Minnesota. It mostly stays in Ann Arbor. And then one coming up for MSU. So just talk a little bit about, how cool it is having the big house and a lot of those other things that you can lean into with some of these recruiting trips to not only highlight the wrestling program, but what Ann Arbor has to offer.
Yeah, it's a special place, obviously, and I know I'm biased because I wrestled here and I coach here, but it is a special place, and it's an easy place to showcase. I mean, our facilities, world class, all the resources we have from a wrestling standpoint, from a coaching staff to an RTC, our strength coach, nutritionalist, our academic advisor. I mean, these are all people that are the best of the best in their field. So I feel like it's a very easy um, wrestling program to showcase. And obviously, we've been having tremendous results, both collegiately and internationally, over this last 5, 6 years, so that is easy to showcase. But what also allows us to have um, that extra pieces and those things that sometimes the kids don't think about long term is when they come here, they can see, just an academic and athletic environment that's sort of second to none. And what it's like to be here on campus when there is over 100,000 more people coming into town, alumni, fans coming to go to these games, and some of the superstars that come back to continue to want to be part of this place, from Tom Brady to Charles Woodson. I mean, Derek Jeter, you name it. I mean, there's every weekend on the sidelines and around campus, these former players and athletes want to come back and still be a part of this place because it's very special to them. And it's also such a big brand, and that's one of the things that I'm starting to see, and I think younger kids are starting to realize is NIL and all these different things are becoming a factor in collegiate sports. And even with this house settlement, as you're reading through all these things, I mean, you really want to be able to identify and plug yourself into programs that have resources and have a big brand and capitalize and connect to all that. So we just had a couple great weekends already. We had some of the top kids from around the country at a handful of different weights that were really recruiting hard, and it was great to have those kids on campus. The wrestling environment here has really grown, and the excitement from a fan base has really grown. I mean, the kids we're having on campus, I mean, it was sort of like it was sort of funny because there's fans recognizing these kids when we're walking by in the football
Mhm.
stadium. There's police officers recognizing some of these recruits when we're walking by and leaving the stadium. Kids on campus recognizing them. So I know the focus on wrestling and the optics on wrestling have really grown, and that's a big part of it too. Being
Mhm.
able in that capacity with optics and with NIL and with media. Those have really been growing steadily. So these last couple recruiting visits have been great. Definitely looking forward to the Michigan State weekend. That'll be our next sort of big home official visit weekend. Always a great rivalry game and a great environment in Ann Arbor. So we're very fortunate that way.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, I'm really appreciative of the time. Very excited to see the team this year, and yeah, really appreciate you coming on here.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Coach those guys up to a victory on Saturday, and we'll be at the tailgate cheering you on.
There we go, man. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
All right, go blue.